Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for my review of the 1984 horror slasher film The Initiation, starring Daphne Zuniga, Vera Miles, and James Reed. And I wanted to talk about this film today. This is one of those 80s slashers, which some of you might know. I am a fan of 80s slashers when they're done well. This one I think is still a little bit under the radar. I'm not really sure why compared to some of the other ones. I know it does have somewhat of a fan base, but not as much as some of the so-called bigger name slashers. And I think this one overall, The Initiation, is really, really well done. So it follows kind of a typical plot, but it has enough twists and turns to keep it interesting. Basically, a sorority pledge, Daphne Zuniga, plays the role very well, I might add. Has to do some things to get into her sorority. Like they have to pull off a prank in a mall. I think we all know where this is leading. And of course, there's also some prisoners that have escaped, from like a hospital, a mental hospital type place. And we're not sure if someone from there or maybe someone connected to her past is performing these killings, or if maybe something else is going on. And the film starts out well with some pretty cool imagery. But this film really picks up in the last part of the film, which takes place I think it's supposed to be a mall, but it looks more like an abandoned building. Was not quite sure on that, but it works either way. So some really good things about this film. While there aren't tons of kills, I think the kills are performed really well. There's a lot of suspense in this film. And the acting is pretty solid overall for this type of slasher. Some of the smaller supporting roles, the acting isn't as great as it could be, but the leads all do a great job. Daphne Zuniga in particular is very convincing, and Vera Miles' presence is certainly felt in this film as well, even though she has more of a supporting role, even though she gets top billing, I believe, being the most known actress in the film. And I have to say, this film does a pretty good job of setting up the twists and turns. It gives you enough information where the twists are plausible, but it doesn't give the whole thing away. Now, the execution of the twist is kind of in the middle of the road for me, but it doesn't ruin the film for me. Basically, this is one of those films that has a little bit of plot, but what's really important is the horror set pieces. And I think in that regard, The Initiation does a very great job. The sorority backdrop, I could take or leave. It's typical of slashers from this time period, but I do like that there's kind of a psychological aspect to this film, and our main character, her name is Kelly, I believe. You're not really sure if what she's seeing is a dream or part of her old reality, things like that. There's a couple of twists in this film, and like I said, for the most part, I think they work pretty well, even if this is one of the things that I don't love about the film is that pacing is an issue, like with all these slashers. The film starts and ends great, but the middle of the film does lag a little bit. It's not terrible. I've seen much worse in slashers, but the tone does feel a little inconsistent at times. But overall, if you're just watching a slasher to have a good time, to see some pretty decent kills with some pretty good gore effects, then I think The Initiation is definitely one to watch. And there's just something about this one I like. I don't know, there's an atmosphere to this film, especially the last half hour or so, that's really good and suspenseful. And I actually didn't totally predict the twist the first time that I watched this. I've seen it I saw it once a long time ago. Dating myself here, like back in the 90s probably. And then when I bought the Arrow Blu-ray, which I'll talk about next, I saw it a couple more times since then, and I watched it again for this review. So despite a few small problems, I have watched this one over and over. So I definitely recommend The Initiation to fans of horror films, especially 80s slashers, if you haven't seen it. As for the Arrow Blu-ray, I do have to say there was a brand new 2K restoration for this film. It does still look a little shaky in a few scenes. Typically, Arrow does a great job with this, but it still looks better probably than it ever did on the old VHS tapes or anything like that. So it's fine. And sometimes the grittiness of these old movies, the grainy look, helps add to the atmosphere. They don't always have to look perfect, in my opinion. Also, there are some other special features on here. You have an interview with the writer, whose name was Charles Pratt Jr., which is very, very good. There's also interviews with a few of the actors, Christopher Bradley and Joy Jones, and they're okay. They're fun and they're decent enough as well. Also, There is reversible artwork, but I'm not going to show it because I'm not sure if the other artwork is really appropriate for this video. But if you're interested, look up initiation artwork and I'm sure you will find it. But I like this artwork here. It's cool. So this is the one I usually leave showing for things like this. So thank you very much for joining me for my review of the initiation. Thank you.